Upon arrival at home, I got a shock. I learned of some basic things that even if I would have spent a few more decades away, I may never have noticed them. Yes, I was regular at home. When I was in Kapenguria, hardly a month passed without me going home. When I was in Nakuru, hardly a fortnight passed without me going home. When I was in Eldoret, hardly a weekend or a public holiday would pass me without going home. I knew all corners of home. I knew everything at home, or so I thought. But going home, after the termination of my work, I got the biggest shock. The first shock I got was from elderly women. I noticed that elderly women would grab all the milking gel from the shop. Now, going through all the people at home, very few, almost none, used to milk their cows using milk jelly. But once the milk jelly was taken to shops, elderly ladies grabbed them. I went an extra step to know why. They told me that the reason is that they could not afford things like Vaseline. So the only thing that they could afford was milking jelly. I felt bad. I felt that if I was still working, or if I would have known that while still working, every trip I came home, I would come with a carton full of Vaseline petroleum jelly. That is the first shock I got. The other shock had to do with some two ladies. Both were nurses. One was a wife to a teacher, and the other one, her husband, was unemployed. It was because of her activities that the husband was later employed as an assistant chief and later on as a chief. This other lady, her husband was a teacher, but both of them were trained nurses and they used to treat people at home. I noticed that anybody with any sickness would be given two drugs, Puriton and Panadol. Aspirin, not Panadol, aspirin. Whatever disease it was. And I noticed, although there are some things you don't notice unless you look at them, it then occurred to me that the time between planting and the time between the harvesting of beans, people died a lot during that time. It occurred to me that time, but when I was working or when I was still young in school or anything, it never occurred to me that people die, especially that time. People rarely died after harvesting. I never discovered that until I ceased working. And it came to me like this. During planting season, there is a lot of rain. And there is a lot of malaria or cold-related illnesses. Now, that is the time you have heard of Luyas called Wanjala or Nanjala. That is the time when people are really broke. When people are really broke, that is when they are vulnerable. They don't eat. They easily get sickness because of the rain and the mosquitoes. So they could not go to the hospitals. They used to go to these two gracious ladies. They used to go to these two gracious ladies. These two gracious ladies. And you know, it was this way. You go to this gracious lady this time when you are sick. Next time when you are sick, or next time when another member of your family is sick, you go to the other lady. And then this one. You avoid going to the same lady because the first thing you'll be reminded that when the last time you were there, you did not pay for the treatment. Now, when they went there, as far as my little knowledge of medication is that they were treating well. They would treat you and diagnose well your sickness, of course, without the lab facilities. And in most cases, they would discover that you have malaria. Sometimes pneumonia, sometimes whatever. But cold-related sickness. These ladies, through their own efforts, the two ladies had at least some drugs which were Puriton and aspirin. Now, when you go there, you are with malaria, or you go there, you are with pneumonia, first of all, you are supposed to pay them consultation fee. You don't have money. So it is written somewhere, you'll pay when you have money. Then she sees you the way you are. She has diagnosed your sickness, and you're supposed to go back home. But when you're supposed to go back home, you cannot go there without any treatment. So you are given Puriton and aspirin just to kill pain. And there is nothing as bad as pain that has been masked by painkillers, by sickness that has been masked by painkillers. And then people would go that way and die. That is what I discovered at home. The issue of milk jelly and the issue of the two nurses who used to treat people. And I would even, there's a time I would ask them, why don't you stock your, with the whatever? And they said, you see, we have no, like this one whose husband later became, was appointed in the administration. She said her husband is jobless. She is a trained unemployed nurse. Where can she get money to buy? So I'd forgotten something. Then they would, once they have diagnosed your sickness, they give you the painkillers and write to you. They say, go to a chemist and buy the following drugs. Of course, you don't have the money. You go home and die. I got that shock. If I would not have gone home, maybe I would have spent several decades without even knowing that that is the problem that was at home. Lastly, when I lost my job, I used to survive on issues of election because retired Justice Chesoni, his mother, Hachiti Chesoni, Mrs. Hachiti Chesoni, the mother to the late Chief Justice, was one of the four houses of Huatenge. My grandmother was in house number 3 and she was in house number 1. So, Chesoni being my nephew, of course, I used to get a lot of these, me and my father, and let's say immediate family members used to get these things about by-elections. You remember after 1992 elections, we used to have a lot of by-elections, especially in Luhya land, where you'd hear an MP or a councillor has defected to Kanu. So you'd go for the election. Then one time, and that thing really hurts me. One time, there was an election in Kitutu Chache, where Angwenyi won, and Richard Moima Onyonka was a close number 2. That was in 96, 95, 95, 96. I did remember that while going to Kisii, I went with my fare only. And I knew that the head of the CID, nowadays called DCI, the head of the DCI in Kisii was somebody from home, and is somebody who was one rank ahead of me in Wajir. So I knew that he'll take care of me for the fortnight that I'll be there. So I went to the office, and I was told he had just been transferred to Embu. Imagine being in Kisii, you don't know anybody, the only person you know has been transferred to Embu. I nearly dropped dead. I didn't have even a coin in my pocket. But then, the police officer said, oh, but his wife is around. Can you go and see the wife? So they took me to his wife, and I just told her that I came to see your husband, and so on and so forth. Then she said it was around morning, so she said, can you walk around and maybe come back around lunchtime? So I walked around. Imagine, I know nobody in Kisii town. After going around, I came back around lunchtime. I found she was changed. She was much, much changed. She welcomed me well. She prepared a meal. She said if she would have known that I was that close to her husband, at the time she was telling me to go and loiter around, she would have asked me what food I would have wanted, and she would have prepared. But seeing me hungry and coming back, she could not ask me and then go and buy. So she just bought what? I had a heavy meal. And then she told me that he had said that I should be treated in the best way because I was a good person. Now here is a lady staying in a house with her brother, a small house. At least I was guaranteed of food. Now the problem was, where do I sleep? And after that meal, as I was walking around Kisii town, I met an AP chief inspector, whom we were with in Mandera when he was an inspector like me. You know what he told me? He told me that you can go around. In my house, I can only assure you a place to sleep. But where to eat or anything, for the days that you'll be conducting the elections, I'm sorry, I cannot assist. Now here is a family that is ready to feed me, but has no place to show me to sleep. And here is a colleague who has a place for me to sleep. And I just told each that thanks for, I'll take care of the other. So we did the elections. After the elections, my maternal family are very strict. You don't visit anybody empty-handed. Even if it is Peter Kuguru, whose parents brought up my mother, if you visit him, carry something to give him as an appreciation of the visit. Now, after the elections, I wanted to give this chief inspector something. He refused. Said, no, I know you are jobless. And I went to the lady again. I said, she also told me, you are jobless. Please use the money properly. But during those days, I've just told you that the lady used to stay with her younger brother. And they used to talk a lot about salvation. Unaona ile crusade tulikuwa daraja mbili. Sijui nini nini tulikuwa ABCD. Pastor aliomba tukaroika nini. But you see, I'm religious, but I'm not that type of religion. The brother and sister would talk and whatever. I had that, distance between me and them. And you see, most of the time they used to say, hey, Yesu ni Bwana, whatever. I used to find that as boring. So I would just appear there during meals, sleeping and bathing at the AP Chief Inspector's place. The Chief Inspector was called Adriano Motoka. Yeah, the Nectopus reminded me that he was called Adriano Motoka. So he took care of where to sleep and where to bathe. And when it comes to eating, I would go to. I was not close to them because anytime we were with them, they would say, hey, leo hukwenda kazi ndio, na sikuna crusade huko daraja mbili. I said, no. So I was not close to them for a very simple reason that they used to talk a lot about hallelujah. So elections were done. I went home. And then a few months later, the man of the house came and we met. We met at a mutual place, not in my place, not in this place. We talked. I told him, hey, I really praised his wife and I praised his brother-in-law. I said, hey, then, he was a detective and he started interrogating me. My brother-in-law, I said, I just found him there and whatever. Are you close, whatever? But the way he was turning to asking me was more of an interrogation more than an interview. You see, the difference between interrogation and interview is both are interviews, but interrogation is that you are being treated as a suspect. So I just said, you see, these people are very religious, and me, I'm not that religious. So most of the time, even I was in a house, then the gentleman told me that the brother-in-law, immediately after I left, within a week, he came and looted that house. I have stayed for a long time. I have suffered a long time. Up to now, still suffering. But I'm not a crook. I have never thought of stealing anybody's thing. Never, not even once. I can tell you, I'd rather come to you and beg for 50 shillings. Yes. Begging is not honorable, but stealing is worse. I can never commit a crime. Never. I've passed, and actually life now is not that bad compared to, if you draw a graph from the time when I was, and just look around my neck, I may put on weight. There were occasions when I went through hell, but and I will never think of committing any crime. No, never, not me. Amen.